Um, that said, it's both an honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for today's symposium. And so this is fellow alumnus, NC State alumnus, Brad Lambert. And Brad is actually logging in from the West Coast. So huge kudos and props for joining us this early. And hopefully he's also had his coffee. But after 10 years in the sports industry, working with professional athletes and different teams, Brad moved to LA to work with actor Robert Downey Jr. And later went on to Warner Brothers to manage marketing campaigns for TV and film, winning 3 Clio Awards. Since then, he's been producing, managing talent, and speaking worldwide and doing consulting gigs with studios and other major brands. In 2019, he actually worked on marketing campaigns for 2 of the biggest movies of all time, collaborating with Walt Disney Studios and Marvel Studios on Avengers Endgame, and with Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios on Spider-Man Far From Home. So super stoked to have Brad here with us today. I'm excited for kind of to hear a little bit more about him and his story. 2 things want to know, and Brad might mention this himself, but we have both the chat turned on and the Q&A feature. So as Brad is talking, if you think of things, would love for you guys to jump in, contribute. Obviously, this is virtual. We're in a virtual world, but if we can make this as interactive as possible, I think that would be awesome. So that said, Brad's introduction speaks for itself. So Brad, I'll turn the floor over to you to kick us off today. So welcome.
Thanks, Connor. I appreciate it. And I'm so glad to be here today. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming in and being a part of this keynote and this symposium. As Connor mentioned, this is super interactive, right? We may be virtual, but you have the opportunity to kind of tune in and ask questions. And I want you to do that. This is not your typical keynote. I can sit up here and talk about myself for 45 minutes, or you can ask questions and I can specifically answer the topics and things that you want me to talk about. And for me, if I can say one thing that helps you in some way, shape, or form, then I've done my job. That's my goal today, right? Not to sit up here and talk about me, but to help you guys. So I want you guys to be active. If I'm in 2 minutes into this thing and you have a question, hit the chat. Truly, I want to answer your questions as often as I can. But first and foremost, I'm Brad Lambert. I'm a producer, talent manager, and international speaker in Los Angeles, California. I'm also a consultant, a host, an entertainment journalist. I wear a lot of hats out here in the entertainment industry. But that's the beautiful thing about life, is you can wear a lot of different hats. And you don't have to necessarily label yourself as just one thing. But how did I get to this point? Well, let's go back to high school, when I was still trying to figure out who I was, what I liked, what I wanted to do with my life. And for me, I was pretty simple. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm a diehard Steeler fan. I'm from a sports town, so I love the sports industry. And I love the movies. I love entertainment. I love TV. I love music. So that was where I kind of started, where I was like, this is who I am. This is what I love. So I wanted to work with my professional athletes. I wanted to work with my favorite athletes that I watched on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays. They play like every day now. But I wanted to work with those guys and I wanted to be a part of their life. I wanted to build genuine relationships with these guys. And you're going to hear me talk about that a lot on this keynote, building genuine relationships. And what that means is not building a relationship with someone to get something in return, but actually building a genuine relationship with someone like you would with a friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, family member, right? A genuine relationship. Because if you're building a relationship with someone to specifically get something in return, it's not going to work out for you. And that's just a fact. So we'll touch on that a little bit more, but I wanted to build genuine relationships with these guys. So for me, first and foremost, that's what I did. So I cold calling, reaching out. Back then, a phone book. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but we had like the yellow pages and the white pages, and we would look people up in the phone book. And that's how I started connecting with a lot of these guys, believe it or not. So the first guy I connected to was 2-time Super Bowl champion, fast Willie Parker with the Pittsburgh Steelers, longest run in Super Bowl history. If I have any Seahawks fans on here, apologies. But I connected with him and I built a very strong relationship with him and his family. And it was very genuine. I cared about him, cared about his family. I would call to check in. I would ask how I could help, what value could I add to him and his family? And I ended up getting in junior, senior year of high school, working with Willie Parker on marketing and PR and social media. And with that, when you're able to build these genuine relationships and caliber people know you're not in it for anything specifically other than to actually have genuine interaction and genuine relationships with people, you really build a good reputation for yourself. And that is so important. Warren Buffett says it takes 20 years to build a good reputation and minutes to ruin. Well, in today's day and age, it's like seconds due to social media, right? So you have to really put an emphasis on building a reputation for yourself. So that's something I want to really highlight too, is these genuine relationships not only show people that you're genuine and authentic, which especially in this industry, the entertainment industry, few and far between. It is very smoke and mirrors, wild, wild west, snake in the grass. It's tough. But that's the beautiful thing about it is if you can separate yourself and show people that you're legit and you're also genuine, you're really going to set yourself up nicely. So I was able to do that in the sports industry early on, working with a lot of the athletes. And when Willie knew that I was legit and I wasn't there to take advantage of him or ask for anything, players talk, people talk, and I was able to kind of build throughout the entire organization up to the head coach, Mike Tomlin, to the Rooney family. And that's something I'm forever grateful for, because once again, being from Pittsburgh, that was a dream to work with these guys. And I was just a kid in high school. So at that time, social media was booming. Okay. Facebook came out of the gates. Nobody knew what to do. And I educated myself and understood Facebook. So I was able to educate these athletes and help them build their brands online for success now, but also in the future. So when you're looking at situations, you're saying, is there a gap? Is there a hole that I can fill with necessary value? Do I see an opportunity here where I could bring my strengths, my skill set to this person or this business and say, here, I can do this for you. And this is why it's going to be good for you. So once again, you're not saying, hey, give me a job. You're saying, hey, here's what I can do for you. I think it'll really help you. Would you be against this? And most of the time people are like, absolutely. I've actually been struggling in this area. This is great. So I did that in the sports industry. I worked with the players. I worked with the teams. I worked with agencies. I worked with brands, brought graphic design to the table, PR to the table, social media to the table, marketing to the table. And I did that all the way up until it was time to go to college, right? So for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. And I panicked and did what most do, where it's like, maybe I should do what my family does. So a lot of my family are engineers. So I applied to one college, which was very stupid, by the way. I applied to one college, and that college was NC State University. And I also applied to the engineering college, which was also pretty stupid because that's very difficult to get into. But I ended up getting in because I had some, really good grades in high school. And I went to my first class, ENG 101, I think is what it was. And 15 minutes in, I knew this was not for me. I knew engineering was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I walked out of my class. I went straight to my counselor and said, hey, this isn't it. So we talked it out, and the counselor was like, so what do you like? What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I like sports and I like entertainment. Well, you're in luck. We have a sports management degree, parks, rec, and tourism. I think that's a good fit for you. I was like, awesome, let's run it. So I went to parks, rec, tourism, sports management, and I was learning about the sports industry, which was awesome. But I was also getting a business, marketing, communications degree, very broad. So it was a very good experience for me. But simultaneously, I was working with a marketing agency all through college. I ended up reaching out to a guy, probably, I think my senior of high school, freshman year of college, who owned an agency in Cary, North Carolina. And once again, reaching out to people and providing value. That is your bread and butter. That's your key to success, right? Have a very specific plan when you're reaching out to people, because first impressions are very important. So I reached out to this big entrepreneur from New York, and he moved to Cary, started his agency. And I was like, hey, I want to work with you. These are my skill sets. Here's how I think I can offer it to you and bring the necessary value to you and your business. And he was all in. So I worked full time with this agency, servicing Fortune 500 companies all through college while I was doing, my schoolwork and things of that nature. So not a lot of free time, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I still had time to go to Sammy's and watch the Steelers, obviously. But for me, my goal was to get as much experience as I can in as many different areas as I can, right? So working with this agency, I would go to New York, I would sit down with these Fortune 500 brands, and it was such an incredible experience. So I really wanted to focus on that. And for me, that's what I did. So I think junior year, I took a year off of school because the experience I was getting with these Fortune 500 brands in New York City, I couldn't like pass that up. So I took a year off and dove deeper into this opportunity. I ended up finishing at NC State remotely online. And I was in Pittsburgh. I had an internship at the Pittsburgh Power, which was part of the Arena Football League. I ended up getting hired shortly after that, moved back to North Carolina, and was working remotely on the Pittsburgh Power stuff as well as all my side stuff. So early on, I recognized that I had a very entrepreneurial spirit and I was wired as an entrepreneur, where you just like can't turn it off. You're just like 24/7, like a lunatic. So that's where I really thrived. So I ended up continuing to do those kind of consulting gigs for social media, PR, marketing, graphic design, and then ended up getting a job to go work for a sports agency back in Pittsburgh. So simultaneously with that, though, I watched a video on YouTube, and it was Robert Downey Jr. winning the People's Choice Award for Iron Man 3. And I ended up watching this video, and I was like, I want to work for Robert Downey Jr. And I don't know if you can tell, but I grew up with comics. I love Marvel. I love DC. So big fan of those films, big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So big fan of Iron Man, Tony Stark. So seeing that, I was like, I want to work for Robert Downey Jr. And mind you, I'd never been to Los Angeles. I didn't know anyone in the entertainment industry, but that didn't stop me before because I didn't know anyone in the sports industry either. But that's the beautiful thing about life is you can go after whatever you want within reason, right? So I swing for the fence in every aspect of my life. It doesn't even have to make sense, right? Wanting to work for Robert Downey Jr. makes no sense at all considering my situation. East Coast guy, no connections, never been to California, that kind of thing, right? But that's what I wanted to do. So I put it out there. I'm a firm believer in manifestation. Like I cannot stress that enough. Put it out there because look, at the end of the day, it's going to happen or it's not. But if you come out of the gate saying it's not going to happen, guess what? It's not going to happen. So you might as well have that good juju and put it out there saying, hey, this is going to happen. And believing it genuinely and continuing to talk about it, be about it. And 12 months later, after watching that video, I was living in LA working for Robert Downey Jr. and his team. And that was one of the, I think, pivotal moments in my career where I realized like, all right, I'm pretty sure anything's possible at this point because that was just insane. But I emphatically believed that this was going to happen and no one could tell me otherwise. My friend said I was crazy. My mom was like, you got to get a job, get your head out of the clouds. And, I love my mom. She's very supportive, but she was also like, you got to get a job. You can't like sit around forever and worry about, is this going to happen or not? And I was like, Mom, like this is going to happen. And it did. And it was a magical moment. So I moved out to Los Angeles and I worked with Downey and his team for about a year. I got my shotgun intro to Hollywood in that industry. And I brought my business, my marketing, my social media, my digital background. And that's how I provided value to him and his team while getting the necessary lessons of someone who didn't go to USC Film School. So script coverage, script analysis, research, production. It was an awesome shotgun intro to the business. After my time with Downey, they recommended me go get studio or agency experience. So I went to Warner Brothers for a few years and worked over there, managing their digital marketing campaigns for TV, film, and catalog titles. And what that means is basically they would give me a lump sum. Here's $200,000, $300,000. Use it appropriately for our campaign. Work with agencies, negotiate the deals, produce the content with the agencies, and make sure this campaign works from beginning, middle to end. And that's what I did. And I really found myself as a producer at that job because I realized I was very good at negotiating. The agencies did not enjoy speaking to me on the phone, and obviously very professional, but I was very good at negotiating. So I was able to get great deals for us. I saved us a bunch of money. I want to say in the first 3 to 5 months of 2017, I saved us over $500,000 just negotiating, which is crazy. But that was not what was left over. That's what I saved in negotiating from the rates that they had. But also, I have a very creative business background. So in that role, I loved being creative. I have a creative eye. I have a vision. So I'm able to be a producer in that extent as well. So I ended up producing a film on the side, a horror film with horror legend Victor Miller, who created Friday the 13th, Jason. So that was a really cool experience for me because I had no idea what I was doing there. But when you're faced with an opportunity, don't blink. Someone called me up, said, "Hey, I have a script. It's from Victor Miller," which is like a horror legend. "Can you do anything with this?" And instead of saying, "No, I've never produced a film in my life," I said, "Let me make a few calls." And I called the people that I knew in the industry who was familiar with things like this. And sure enough, one of them took the bait, jumped on it, and we produced a movie together. And that was such a incredible experience. I got my executive producer credit. It was such a cool experience while working at Warner Brothers. I wasn't super involved because of my full-time job, but just to be able to make a few calls and figure that out. And literally, if I didn't do that, that film wouldn't have been made. And that's just the reality of it. So to embrace that challenge and say, let me try at least. I'm not just going to say, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to say, let me make a few calls. Let me see what I can do. And then if I can't figure it out, I'm going to hopefully put you in a direction to someone who does, right? So I was at Warner Brothers for 2 years. As Connor said, I was part of 3 Clio award-winning campaigns that I managed. The Lego Batman movie, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Kong Skull Island. So that was really cool. So basically, any of the content that you saw coming out of the social media channels for Warner Brothers, the Wonder Woman account, the Kong Skull Island account, I most likely helped produce that content. So the stuff you're retweeting and commenting on, be kind, because I might have been that person. So I ended up working with Warner Brothers for 2 years, and then I left, and I've been independent ever since. And for me, like I said, I'm all about building genuine relationships. And it's funny because when I came out here, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Pittsburgh, a blue collar town, a genuine town, a good town. So coming out here, it was a different experience. And I got hit in the mouth. It was tough. And I had to adjust, but I didn't change who I was. And that's important. So me not changing who I was allowed me to really separate myself. And a lot of people didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing, why I was talking to certain people, why I was, hanging out with certain people. I remember getting talked to by one of my bosses at the studio early on. He's like, "Why are you on the 3rd floor talking to the creative team?" I'm like, "Well, we work with the creative team, so I want to have a good relationship with those guys." No, you're not allowed to talk to those people. And I was like, that makes no sense. And guess what? Those relationships that I had on the 3rd floor, as well as the legal team and every other team that we worked with, I had genuine relationships with those people. And guess what? Because I had genuine relationships with people, because I took the time to talk to those people, when I called them and needed something, or they needed me for something, it got done quick. Not because I was some faceless person on the 4th floor that they never heard of before, but because I would pop in and say hello every now and again. And we had a genuine relationship. I still talk to a bunch of those people today. But you're going to get people who just don't get it. And that's fine. But you can't change who you are. And if your focus is on building genuine relationships with other people, not only are those people going to have nice things to say about you because you're genuine, but you're also building these relationships and you're going into these situations not asking for anything. That is the key. You're not saying, hey, give me. No, you're saying, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I elevate your business or whatever it is you're doing? And that has always been my focus. That is my mantra: genuine relationships, kindness, empathy, and providing value. And those things all added up. That's where I'm at today, period. And I wouldn't change it. And I haven't. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is if you're genuine in how you approach things and you're patient. Okay. And that's so important, because a lot of people aren't patient. They want to connect with someone because they want something. And the second they don't get it within their unreasonable timeline, they're out. Or it's like, hey, if you would have stuck in there, 2-3 weeks more, might have got what you wanted. But a lot of people just don't think that way. They're like, I need what I want, and I got to get it quick or I'm out. It's not how it works. You got to be patient. And once again, if you're setting unreasonable timelines, it's not really a genuine relationship, is it? Right? You might not get something with someone, and that's fine. That has to be okay. Right? I try to surround myself with people who I admire and who inspire me. That's it. They could work at the grocery store. They could be Robert Downey Jr. They could be 2-time Super Bowl champion Willie Parker. It doesn't matter. If they're a good person, that's all I care about. But I also want to be around people who are very good at what they do. It doesn't even have to make sense for what I'm doing currently, right? So I remember back at Warner Brothers, there was this musician. Her name was Tina Guo. She's the best cello player on the planet. She tours with Hans Zimmer, the famous composer. She's worked on the Dark Knight trilogy, Pirates of the Caribbean, some of the most iconic score tracks you've ever heard in your life, and some of the most iconic movies of all time. She's total badass, like absolute rock star. Did I need a cello player? Absolutely not. But I was so enamored with how incredible this woman was, and what a performer she was, and what an artist she was, that I just wanted to know her. Like, I thought she was total badass. So I reached out, I connected, and we've been friends to this day. I didn't ask for anything. I just was like, you're amazing. If I can help you in any way, shape, or form, let's connect. And sure enough, months, if not years later, I had an opportunity to throw her a gig because I knew her. And that's the beautiful thing about life. But going into a situation because I need something, or I see how I can monetize this, or whatever, that's not it. That's not it at all. Right? So I can't stress that enough, because that, like, the building genuine relationships aspect, some may call it networking. I used to throw networking, that word, around so much when I was in high school and even halfway through college. But then I started to realize that people were networking and collecting people like Pokemon cards. And that's not what networking should be. And if you're doing that, that's probably why you're having problems. Because if you're trying to request people on LinkedIn like you are in real life, that's not it. Like that's not going to work for you. But reaching out to someone, genuinely caring about them and their family and their well-being, that's where the magic happens. And another good story, Chris Voss, he's the foremost expert on negotiation, worldwide best-selling author of Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. If you haven't read the book, please do. It will change your life. I'm not kidding. Chris is a genius. He was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI for over 20 years. Guy's an absolute genius. And I heard him on the Lewis House podcast. So I reached out. I was like, you're amazing. I'm here to help, whatever you need. And I ended up helping him with a lot of social media stuff, helped him get verified. And we've been friends ever since. And we actually did a joint podcast together a few years ago, which was awesome because that was totally unexpected. And he actually went on this like 60-second riff about me. And I was just sitting there, my jaw was on the floor. And in life, like, if you could have someone describe you the way you want to be described, that was that moment for me. And he basically ended up saying, Brad's a genuine guy. He believes in long-term relationships, and he believes in not wasting any time. He brought value to the table. And he's like, some people add value wherever they go, and Brad adds value wherever he goes. And he's an easy guy to do business with. And I was speechless, because that's exactly what I strive for day in and day out, providing value wherever I go, big or small. And that's the thing, big or small. No one's asking you to change the world overnight. But if you can solve problems for other people consistently and do so at a high level, your phone will always ring. And that needs to be your goal. And if you're doing that, good things happen. Like your reputation will be sky high. Your phone will always ring because they know you get stuff done. And that's the beautiful thing about it, where like for me, I look at situations, like I said, for value. Where can I add value? Where do I see a gap in the market? Where do I see an opportunity in the market? And then I try to fill it, right? So I tried to get a job at Disney after I think a year and a half at Warner Brothers, because I loved my job at WB, but I wanted to do it at Disney because I wanted to work on the Marvel films and be a part of those campaigns. So what I did is I tried multiple times. I ended up having, I think, 2 jobs where I came runner up, and it was devastating for me. And I could have, given up on that dream, but I was like, okay, I'll keep working at it. And years later, I ended up being a part of the marketing campaign as an independent entrepreneur. I didn't work for anybody. I worked for myself, but I created that opportunity because I brought the necessary value to Disney that they needed. I brought the biggest digital artists in the space to Disney for that campaign, brought a ton of value with it, negotiated the deal, handled everything. And that's the actual piece that my artist designed. And it's signed by everyone and it's on the wall. So this stuff behind me is not a flex. This is not, look how cool I am. This is a daily reminder that no matter how crazy your ideas are or your dreams are, they can happen. And that's a beautiful thing about it. The Iron Man 3 poster is signed by Robert Downey Jr. The Endgame poster is signed by everyone, like everyone. And that's the beautiful thing about life, is keep swinging for the fence. Okay. But don't sit and wait to see how far the ball goes after you hit it. Just keep swinging the bat, because you might not find out where the ball lands till a month later, 6 months later, 6 years later. But that's a beautiful thing. If you keep swinging the bat and you have multiple irons in the fire, it doesn't matter. Things take time. But if you're putting all your eggs in one basket of that first swing, you're going to be sitting around for a while and you might be wasting a ton of time. And that's the beautiful thing about what I do, is now, I see an opportunity where it's like, I never thought I'd be in LA. I'm in LA. I never thought I'd be an entertainment journalist interviewing, the top talent for these films. I just interviewed Jack Dylan Grazer, who was in It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2, Shazam. And now he's in Disney's new film, Ron's Gone Wrong. I just interviewed Judy Greer and Annie Matichak for Halloween Kills. Last night, I was just at the Halloween Kills world premiere at the Chinese Theater. Anything's possible. And I cannot stress that enough. But you have to believe it, and you got to be willing to do the work. And you have to be patient. You have to be consistent. And once again, if you're building those genuine relationships, that's the deal breaker. I'm telling you, because that's my strength. I've always had a strength of building genuine relationships because I get it. I understand the value of it, of just having these people around you. When I moved to LA, I wanted to obviously meet Robert, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Scooter Braun. Those were the 3 names I had on the list. And in the first few years, I checked off Gary V and Robert Downey Jr. And I'm blessed to call those guys friends today. But the other thing I want to say is, nobody gets anywhere by themselves. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my family, my friends, the people who opened doors for me. The Robert Downey Jr. thing, I connected with a man, one of my best friends, changed my life. He saw something in me because I showed him who I was, what I was about, and what I could offer. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away in a car accident a few months ago. But I wouldn't be where I am today without him.
Wow. Well, Brad, thank you for sharing all that. I think, yeah, your story is one that gives me goosebumps and chills, and I'm sure everyone else who's tuning in today can relate to that too. And I think we've seen a few questions roll in. I think what you shared obviously is super impactful and helpful, I think, just as we're all navigating what it means to kind of continue, pushing for what's next in our careers and kind of finding that next step, or just, pursuing our dreams, right? And so one question that came in was just someone who, was that shared that they were just struggling to connect with people super easily. They try and reach out, but it doesn't necessarily feel authentic. So just what kind of advice do you have for folks to break out of their shell and maybe, showcase that they really do have something to bring to the table?
Sure. First, I'm not seeing these messages. My chat is empty, so I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
if that's
I think it's our Q&A feature. So I'll just read them off if that makes it easy too. So if that's helpful to tee
okay.
that up.
Nice. Yeah, I see
And I'll
that.
send them to
Okay,
you so
cool.
you have them too.
No, that's great. Appreciate you, Connor. Let's see. I'm struggling to connect with people so easily. I try to reach out and it never feels authentic. I mean, honestly, if you're reaching out asking for something immediately, yeah, it's not going to feel authentic. But if you're reaching out and you're showing consistent love and consistent support to whoever this person is and whatever they're doing, like what I did early on with these professional athletes is I would just reach out to them. Hey man, awesome game on Sunday. Great touchdown, and half the time I didn't hear back. And guess what? That's okay. Right. You gotta acknowledge the fact that these people are so insanely busy. You can't take it personally. Kristen, they're not ignoring you. Like they don't hate you. You know what I mean? Like it's they're busy. Like I have so many unanswered texts on my phone and I'm good at communicating, but that's just how, life is busy. Everyone's busy and it's not personal and you can't take it personally. And that I think is the most important thing about this is you have to be patient, right? So that person you reach out to initially, if they don't get back to you, okay. 2-3 weeks later, reach out again. Say something different this time. Don't just copy and paste the same thing. Do your research. Maybe they did a campaign for a movie or they did something that you liked. Hey, I saw your work. It was amazing. And then when you do that consistently, it might take 6 months, it might take 6 years. But if you do that consistently, this person is going to be like, yo, Kristen, she's like authentic. She cares about me. She cares about my life. She does nonstop, consistent love on all my posts. All right, I'm going to hop on a call with her. And that call might change your life. But if you give up on that pursuit because they don't hit you back right away or they don't respond after the first message, you miss that opportunity. And that's the thing. You have to keep swinging the bat and not worry about that response or hearing back or whether it's going to work out, right? Because it might take a while and that's okay. But you have to stay consistent and you have to prove yourself that you're a good person, that you're authentic, that you're not just in it for something. Because especially in this industry, I don't have time to waste time. I don't have time for games. I don't want people playing manipulation games. My bullshit radar, excuse my French, is off the chart. Like I can smell you from 6 miles away. So don't even waste my time because I want genuine people in my life. And if you're not genuine, no, thank you. Like just straight up. So that's why the people who I let in my life are people who have consistently shown love on social media, who've offered to help me with something, who have just been just supportive of me in my journey. Like those are the kind of people I want in my life. Once again, I try to surround myself with people who I admire and who inspire me. And that's been the goal from, excuse me, that's been the goal from day one.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. Feel free to throw a follow-up if you have it, but thanks,
yeah,
Brad.
come on, spam the chat.
Yeah,
I know we got people
throw
in
them
here.
in the chat. Throw them in the chat. Throw them in the Q&A. Another one that we have here is just asking, do you ever deal with imposter syndrome with all of these things? Doing these things for the first time, right?
Hannah. Listen to me when I say this. Everybody starts something for the first time. The best in the business at any field, in any field, any vertical, started for the first time at some point, right? So I go into a situation. When I started out, I was like, I'm a producer. What have you produced? It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not saying I'm Kevin Feige, who produced the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm saying I'm a producer. This is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing. Fake it till you make it. To an extent, yeah. You got to own what you want to do. Otherwise, people aren't going to take you seriously. I was at the world premiere of Halloween Kills last night, and I took my co-host, my business partner, one of my good friends. He's like my little brother, Matt Ramos. He's huge on TikTok. His name's Soups. He has 2.4 million. Kid's a lunatic, but I found him on social media at the beginning of the pandemic, and I reached out to him, and we've been working together ever since. But we're on the carpet last night, and he's walking the carpet. Now, mind you, this was not his first premiere, but this was his first walking the carpet, which means the paparazzi's going crazy. They're taking pictures and all that stuff. And you're supposed to go up to the paparazzi and these photographers, say your name, go back, pose, do your photos, etc. And he went up and he said, "Hey, my name is Matt Ramos. It's my first time doing this." And I pulled him aside afterwards and I said, "You got to give yourself more credit, bro." I was like, you can't, tell them that. You have photographers who've been in the business for 20 years. When you say this is my first time, they're going to be like, I'm not even wasting my time. This person's a nobody. But if you walk up and say, "I'm Matt Ramos," and confidently say that and walk away, they're like, "Oh shit. Okay." And that's the beautiful thing about it. You have to own it. So imposter syndrome, no. But you got to have confidence in yourself. And there's a difference between being confident and being arrogant. Okay. So you got to have confidence in yourself, because I'm not where I want to be yet. But when someone asks me, what do you produce? What are you working on? Who do you manage? I'm not comparing myself with Scooter Braun, who manages Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber and the biggest artists on the planet. But I manage some really great people, and I'm grateful for the people who are in my life. But you have to own that, Hannah. Everybody starts from square one, everybody, and no one gets anywhere by themselves. So you got to have that confidence in yourself to say, "Hi, I'm Hannah Shea, and this is what I do." Okay, Hannah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And we probably have time for one more question here. So feel free to drop that in the Q&A. But one thing too, Brad, that's kind of come to light is just, you talk about genuine relationships. You talk about, follow up with people, checking with them, genuinely asking how they are, who they are. So I guess just like thinking of one or two tangible things as takeaways for building those genuine relationships. Like, what would you recommend someone do who's looking to build those relationships maybe for the first time? They're reaching out and connecting with someone. Or even just like maybe they've already had started the relationship, had it developed, but just like from a check-in perspective, like what does that look like? Tips, tricks, thoughts for how to continue
It's a
building
lot
that.
of work.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where people fall off, because they realize it's a lot of work, and they get impatient because whatever they're striving for, or whatever they have in the back of their head of what they want, they're like, "Oh, this isn't happening fast enough, so I'm done wasting my time." Once again, if you're saying that, it's not a genuine relationship. You have to be okay with having this person in your life, right? Who's impressive, who you're enamored with, you admire, whatever, and you might not get anything in return, and that's okay. But trust me when I say this, if your goal is to build these genuine relationships, trust me, like, things generally end up coming back.
Yeah.
Generally coming back, I promise you. But it might not be on your timeline, but that's okay. Willie Parker, like I said, I connected with him when I was in high school. I think I was 16, 17 years old. Now I'm Uncle Brad to his two kids. Put that into perspective. Like, that's a long friendship. You know what I mean? But Hannah, thank you for commenting back. Yes, mindset's everything, guys. You have to have the confidence. And once again, people will see right through you. If you're not confident in yourself, people aren't going to waste their time, especially people who are more successful, more seasoned, who have been in the game a longer time than you. You have to prove to them that you're not going to waste their time, and you deserve to be there. And that's how I've always looked at my relationships, where, Robert Downey Jr., for example, it took me 5 years to ask for a photo. 5 years. You know why? Because the second you ask for a photo, you're a fan. So if I came in there, boom, "Hey, Robert, I want a picture day one." Okay, Brad, the end. And that was it. So when I finally asked 5 years into knowing this guy, he was like, "Get over here, man. Are you crazy?" Of course. But that's, once again, you got to have your priorities straight, and you got to come at it genuinely. And I've never asked Robert for anything, and I won't. That's not why I have this relationship. I'm just grateful to have a guy like Robert Downey Jr. in my life. Even if I talk to him once a year, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe one last question, and you might have touched on it a little bit, but just suggestions on building confidence while staying genuine, because you kind of talked about both of those things, but just as
Sure.
they align, the
So
intersection.
Anna, this life in general is hard. You're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to trip and stumble, but you can't quit. And the confidence comes from not quitting, because you may fail 4 or 5 times and then quit, but that 6th time might be the time where you hit that home run, and that's where you gain that confidence, right? So imagine you're a kid and you're trying to walk, you fell on your head like 17 times, right? But you stuck with it, and now you're walking, you're running, you're doing the thing. Same thing with riding a bike. It's the same thing in business, the same thing in life. I'm not afraid of failing. I failed so many times I've lost count. But once again, I don't look at it as failing. I look at it as a lesson. I either succeed or win, or I learn. That's it. There is no losing. There's no failing. And plus, if I fail, it wasn't meant for me, which is fine. But I'm also going to learn of what not to do, right, in that given situation. But you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, try new things, maybe bite off a little bit more than you can chew, and be willing to take that hit in the mouth if need be. And guess what? You get hit in the mouth, you brush it off, and you get back in the ring. And I know it's easier said than done, but trust me, I've been hit in the mouth so many times, but I'm still going. Like, and no one's going to tell me to stop, or no one's going to tell me otherwise. But that's how you build that confidence, is not quitting, not giving up, not taking things personally. And once you master your mindset, beautiful things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for just being here today, kind of sharing your story and speaking to some of the questions that came in. No, we really appreciated it, and hopefully y'all had some great takeaways too from today.